Well, welcome to a new Harry's Farm video, and I thought I'd start this one in the field we were in when we did the previous video 18 days ago, when we were putting the wheat in the ground, drilling as we term it. And here it is. 18 days later, we now have rows of wheat and it's looking terrific. It's such a contrast to last year, 2019, when it just rained and rained and rained. And we just didn't get any crop in. This crop went in, I think it was the 16th of October. Today's 5th of November. Last year, we struggled to put a few fields in on the last day of October. And then that was it until February because of what the weather was doing. And this year we had a lot of rain at the beginning of October. Remember, we had that rain event, over 100 mil of rain here on this farm. And in, I think it was 4th of October, somewhere around there. And then we had this 4-day window, which started at about the 15th of October. And we just went ridiculous, madness, all tractors out, everyone drilling. And this is the result. And it's so satisfying because you only need those 4 days to get it in the ground. So what happened was, after I did that video, we went round the farm, did the rest of the wheat. And then I came out, rolled this perfect seed bed. It's like setting the die for the year. And then you go on with something called a pre-emergent spray. So you then go on, that's what the tractor marks, I can see some sprayer marks he's been on here. And that is like a weed killer, this weed killer that sort of just coats the top of the surface and then zaps weeds as you're coming through. I'd hope to show you a sort of weed being zapped, but I can't find any weeds to show you in this field. But yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 wheat crop. I haven't had one of those for at least 2 years because of weather conditions, so I'm so chuffed, and it's sort of on the drive out from the house. So I can see it every day and it's very satisfying. I wish all the fields looked like this. They're not quite as good as this, but I'm going to take you a little farm tour and show you what else is going on the farm. I've just come from some of my best fields of wheat, and here is my worst field of wheat. This field is called Big Picket, and it's a challenge, this field. We're on Cotswold Brash generally around this area, but every now and then there's a sort of pockets of clay, and this one has its fair share of sort of heavy clay. It's not drained. A lot of you are saying, well, why don't you drain the land? There's nothing to drain into. There's no ditches or anything, and it's very localised where it's wet. This is probably only sort of half an acre, and it's just not worth the expenditure and having the big machines and then trying to create somewhere for it to drain on that sort of acreage. It's just not done in this area at all. But you can see what's happened here. So this was drilled within a day of the front field. And as you can see, there's nothing here. I put out some slug traps, and we're going to have a look at one. We have a slate, and then we put some bait under the slate, and you see if slugs come in. And I've got quite a few slates. The slugs love a clay bit of ground because a clay is hard and it's sort of like a gravel sometimes when it goes hard, and therefore the slugs can all go down all the little passageways and move about in the soil quite happily, and will graze on anything they find, which isn't what's happened here, because this is actually so wet, and October was so wet, 155 mil I think for the month. We'd had 100 mil at the point where we put this crop in, and then since drilling, since the 19th of October, we've had another 55 mil of rain. So 155 when you expect about 50-ish, so 3 times the normal rainfall. And on a super wet field like this, I'm afraid the wheat says, no, I'm drowned, I give up. But actually, as a percentage of the crop, it's not too bad. And last year, we didn't even get anything in this field. So anything's a bonus. And this year, it looks good. The frustration with a heavy clay soil is if you do get it away, well, it's less drought prone, obviously, because it retains moisture, and it grows a very good crop of wheat. And if I now look, if I'd started filming here and just sort of look that way, it all looks fine. So we put a dressing of slug pellets on here, and it was only yesterday. We had a bike in because I didn't want to. It's had a pre-emergent spray as well in here, and you can see it's just made some marks. It's an 8-ton sprayer. So for slug pelleting, I want something much lighter. So we got a bike in, and he was on here yesterday, And already the slug pellets are working. He puts on 5 kilos a hectare, a tiny amount. And there you go, there is a dead slug who's succumbed. He must have eaten a slug pellet this morning and he's not very well. There's a slug pellet, there's another. So they're very spread out. Little compaction the bike leaves as it's rushing around doing its slug pelleting. You can just see that is a wheeling of where the bite has gone on probably my stickiest field, and that wheat hasn't noticed that bite going across there. It's so light, and that's why we've used it, so it just doesn't make a mark, doesn't affect the growth of the wheat, it just carries on. So this is the slug trap, so we just put a bait underneath. I've been checking this every day just to see what comes up, and I can see, you know, I kept seeing there's a slug there, etc. But now it's just bang on, because the slugs, this is a great seed bed for the type of field it is. So the seed didn't get eaten on the way through. It was only came vulnerable to slug damage when it popped its head up, which it did a few days ago. So the slug pelleting has gone on just at the right time. No slugs will be able to graze this because they'll disappear. They'll eat a pellet. It's much more attractive to them than the green. And this is as good as it gets, really. What's weird now is all the wheat's in, which it didn't happen last year. It's up on 5th of November, I have wheat everywhere. The pre-emergent spray has gone on as well. I'm out of jobs, that's it. It's like, it's peculiar, this arable farming, because you have this rush at harvest and then you just work the ground and get ready for drilling and the preparation, etc. And then you do the drilling, and then the next job is to put the pre-emergent herbicide on, and suddenly there's this oasis of calm. All the fields are now drilled on the farm, and there is no other tractor movement or anything to do here until probably, well, March next year. So yeah, we just look at other jobs to do. So we fence in. It's like suddenly you've got to look after the rest. You do the hedges. We're going to have a go at the fencing. We've got stone walls to do. There's a bridle path issue we'll look at in a moment. But the arable crops, you sort of close the gate, and this is when farmers take holidays. That's why pheasant shooting is sort of popular. That's what farmers often did at this time of year, vermin control and that sort of thing. So yeah, really, really chuffed. I give myself a 9.5 out of 10 for the wheat this year, and last year I would have given a 4 out of 10 maximum. So yeah, that's the wheat. Now it's all just down to nature what happens, but let's go and have a look at the oilseed rape, because that's a bit more of an issue. Just say the hedgerows are amazing this year. Just the amount of, the rose hips here, and then the sloes as well. Well, the sloes are going to be picked in the next few days, because it's sloe gin season, isn't it, really? It's another occupation for out-of-work farmers, because they've done all the arable tricks as well. So with sloes, you're always meant to wait for the first frost and that before you pick them to do sloe gin. That happened a couple of days ago, so I can see the next couple of days all these are going to be put in little bottles, and there's going to be lots of sloe gin production going on at the farm, which I'm not going to complain about at all. Well, here's the oilseed rape. And last time we were in here, I was saying it was a bit patchy and we're going to put a foliar feed on it. We put the foliar feed on it, and you now see it's very even. The green, it really picked it up. We also put a herbicide on at the same time, and I can see that's working, because there's sort of that's not very well. You can sort of see it's all curled up, and that's how it's taken up the weed killer, and it's going to disappear. It's funny, with this minimal cultivation, you always end up with sort of not a clean brown soil like we used to do. You always have this trash, and you get a lot of this is just stuff out the back of the combine. This is just wheat that's come out. There's linseed from the year before, etc. That's what this herbicide does. Once you know you've got a crop, I wanted to know I've got a crop, and then I've put this herbicide on that will now wipe all that out, and the rape will get more prominent. Having said that, I would quite like this rape to be a bit bigger, because it's fairly open, and while the wheat and the barley, rest of the farm, we've just closed the gate and we're not going to go near it until March and just see what the season sends us. This oilseed rape is going to keep me, well, busy monitoring, because the pigeons are going to come in. It's the farmer sport through January, February in particular. pigeons are sort of running out of food out the hedgerows, so they come down and nibble your oilseed rape. So that's what will happen. You can sometimes get away with it if you get a very proud crop and it's grown right up. The pigeons can't land on it, but sometimes that's not very good for yield, having too much bulk and it falls over before you get into the combine, etc. So this is sort of about right if pigeons didn't exist, but unfortunately pigeons do exist. So I'm going to be quite busy out here, I can see, during the winter months, keeping them off it. One more thing I want to show you on the farm, let's just go down, have a look at the cattle and what's happening down the bottom on the grasslands. Yeah, cattle are having a little munch. They must have been grazing this morning and they're chewing the cud, as it's termed. They're just on the last few weeks of outdoor grazing. 5th of November, they've probably got another couple of weeks. There's not a lot of grass growth here. I love this field. This is called Garden Bottom, this field. It's wonderful elevation. You'll see in a moment we drop down. But what we're going to do this year, I might well do a video on where they spend the winter months on the home farm. These aren't my cattle. They're all organic herd. This is all soil association, all the grassland here. And they're a suckler herd. And these ladies will be calving in February time. But I have to say, it's the most calming thing in an evening or something is to walk down and just check the cattle, do a little count, and then just walk these sort of pastures is ace. Although the other morning there was a right hullabaloo going on at home, came downstairs and I spotted one of the calves had decided he'd had enough of Front Park and he'd quite like what was in our garden, and he came into our garden and all the mums said, "Oh, what's going on?" So we had a little fun and games at about 7:30 one morning, and that's why we moved them into here. I think they were telling us they're out of grass and they really quite like this field, and I don't blame them at all, because it is one of the prettiest bits of the farm up here. Final thing I want to show you, I'm just going to show you, I'm having a meeting this afternoon with a bridle path person, because there's an issue just down in the bottom of the valley, down here. Just walking down there, I just noticed these sort of skid marks. Now, this suckler herd's got the calves in, and obviously the youngsters just run around. They're like teenagers, and they obviously come down here, and they've all got the bit of the skids on, as you can see as you go down the hill here. Basically, they're like adolescents, teenagers, the young calves, and they've been running around, frisking around, and they got to the steep bit, and they're all a bit out of control. It's like when you go down the local car park and you suddenly see all these skid marks because lads have been out with their cars doing donuts or something. Well, this is the cow equivalent of doing donuts in the local car park, skidding down this hill. Okay, here's the bridge that they're coming out to inspect. The council guy was coming out to play. They're concerned whether it's still safe for horses. So we're going to have a look at it and just see what a solution is. The funny thing about this bridge now is there used to be a brook here. When we bought the farm, well, 20 years ago nearly, there was always a brook here. It's sort of disappeared in the last couple of years, even though it had this really wet years. You know, it's been particularly wet this autumn. Look, there's no water in it. It only seems to happen in flood events. You get some water in here now. So I'll be interested to see what he says, whether this bridge still needs to be there. You need a footpath for bridge for when it does flood, but for horses and things, I'd think it'd be quite fun if it was sort of like a ford. So anyway, that's the discussions this afternoon. It's part of the landowner's responsibility, these sort of things. Be interested to see how it goes. But there you go, there's a look round the farm. Beautiful day for it. In a couple of weeks I'll do another video where I'll just discuss some of the other things we're going to do through the winter on the farm, some other projects and some other bigger picture stuff. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.